Nobody believed in him, not his friends, not his relatives, not even the people who saw him every day. He was ignored like his dreams had no value. When he spoke about his goals, people smiled in doubt. Some even laughed. He was seen as average, ordinary, someone who would never really change his life. And slowly, that kind of judgment starts to sink in. It starts to shape how a person sees themselves. But then something changed, something nobody expected, something that doesn't usually make sense at first. Because in real life, transformation rarely begins with support. It often begins with silence, with rejection, with being underestimated so deeply that you either give up or you wake up. And here is the question that changes everything. What if being ignored is not a weakness, but an advantage? What if doubt is not a stop sign, but fuel? Because history shows something most people never talk about. Many of the most successful people in the world were not supported in the beginning. They were doubted, overlooked, sometimes completely dismissed, but instead of reacting emotionally, they used that doubt as energy. They built quietly. They improved silently, and they changed everything without announcing it. So how does someone go from invisible to unstoppable? In this video, you are going to understand that exact transformation, not just the success story, but the hidden process behind it. You will learn why most people stay stuck when they are ignored, and why a few people use that same situation to completely rebuild their identity. You will also see how discipline, repetition, and silent effort slowly create results that eventually become impossible to ignore. And most importantly, you will understand the psychological shift that separates those who stay average from those who rise beyond expectations. The shift that happens when someone stops waiting for approval and starts building anyway, even when no one believes in them. Because the truth is, becoming unstoppable is not about talent alone. It is about what you do when nobody is watching and when nobody is clapping for you yet. So stay with this video until the end, because what you are about to hear might change how you see your own potential. Welcome to the Soul Manifestation Code, where we explore mindset, discipline, hidden psychology, and the deeper truth behind personal transformation. If you are ready to stop living by other people's expectations and start building your own path, then subscribe to the channel and join us on this journey. It didn't start with success. It didn't start with support or encouragement. It started with silence and distance. No one really believed in him. Not the people around him, not the people he trusted, and definitely not the people who saw his early efforts and judged them too quickly. There was no recognition for what he was trying to build, no applause, no validation. Just the feeling of being unnoticed while carrying something he believed in deeply. There was no clear direction either. Every step forward felt uncertain. Every decision felt like a guess. Some days he would feel motivated, but most days he would feel lost in his own thoughts. And in the middle of all this, rejection became normal. Not always loud rejection, but quiet doubt from others. The kind of doubt that doesn't need words to be felt. A look, a silence, a change in tone when he talked about his goals. Even the people closest to him didn't fully believe he would make it. That part hurts the most, because when belief disappears from the people around you, it slowly starts to weaken your own belief too. He began noticing it in small moments, second-guessing his ideas, overthinking simple decisions, wondering if maybe they were right. And that is where the real internal struggle began. Doubt started entering his mind in a way it never had before, not as a passing thought, but as a constant voice. The pressure to quit grew stronger each day. The gap between his dreams and his reality started to feel too wide to cross. Some moments felt like standing in between two lives, not fully belonging to either one. This is where most people stop without even realizing it, because outside doubt slowly turns into internal doubt. And once the mind starts believing the same limitations it hears from others, the fight becomes much harder than anyone expects. Something changes, but it doesn't happen loudly. There is no announcement, no dramatic moment, no one telling him what to do next. It is quiet, almost invisible from the outside. But inside, a decision is made, a line is crossed that cannot be undone. He stops asking for approval. The need to be understood slowly fades. He realizes that waiting for people to believe in him is only delaying his own progress. So he stops explaining his goals to everyone. The conversations change. Less talking, less justifying, less trying to convince people who were never really going to understand in the first place. He also stops waiting for support. That part is the hardest, because at some point, everyone wants someone to say, "I believe in you." But when that doesn't come, something deeper begins to form, a quiet independence, a mindset that no longer depends on outside validation to move forward. And that is where silence becomes his strategy. Not silence out of fear, but silence out of focus. He starts protecting his energy. He stops wasting time trying to be seen and starts focusing on what actually matters. Small daily actions become everything. No more big promises, no more emotional highs and lows, just repetition, just effort, just showing up again and again. Motivation starts losing its importance. It becomes unreliable, unpredictable, something he can no longer depend on. Discipline slowly takes its place. Even on days when he doesn't feel like it, he still continues. And over time, consistency becomes his strongest weapon. What nobody notices is that this phase looks like nothing from the outside. No applause, no recognition, no visible success yet. But internally, everything is changing. His habits, his mindset, his identity. Because this is the part most people never see. The quiet stage where transformation is actually built long before the world ever notices it. This is the phase where everything becomes repetitive and nothing feels exciting anymore. There are no big moments, no sudden wins, and no one clapping from the outside. Just the same effort repeated every single day. Waking up, working, trying again, failing quietly, adjusting, and continuing without knowing when results will actually show up. There is no instant reward here, no quick success, no visible proof that anything is working. And that is where most people begin to question everything, because the human mind naturally expects results in exchange for effort. But in this phase, effort feels like it disappears into silence. Emotionally, it becomes heavy. Loneliness starts to settle in, not the kind of loneliness that comes from being alone, but the kind that comes from being misunderstood. No one really sees what is happening behind the scenes. No one understands the daily discipline, and that creates frustration. A feeling of working hard, but not being acknowledged for it. Self-doubt also starts to rise again. Thoughts appear quietly at first. Is this even working? Am I wasting my time? Should I stop? These thoughts do not come all at once, but they slowly build in the background of the mind. And every day becomes a quiet internal battle between continuing and quitting. But at the same time, something else is happening too. Small improvements begin to appear, almost unnoticeable at first. Slight changes in focus, better control over distractions, a little more discipline than before. These changes feel too small to matter, but they are stacking quietly in the background. Gradual growth is happening even when it doesn't feel like it. This is invisible progress, the kind that no one celebrates because no one can see it yet, but it is real. It is building something deeper than motivation ever could. Because most success does not happen in attention. It happens in silence, where no one is watching, but everything is changing. At first, it is almost unnoticeable. The change does not arrive like a sudden explosion. It starts quietly, like something shifting in the background. But after a long period of repetition, something finally begins to show on the outside. People start noticing small differences. The same people who once doubted him begin to look at him differently, not with full belief yet, but with confusion. Questions start forming in their minds. Did he actually change? Is something different about him? The doubt that once surrounded him is no longer so certain. It begins to break apart slowly. And for the first time, there are signs that something is working. Opportunities that were never there before start to appear. Small doors begin to open. Conversations shift. People respond differently. Not because everything has suddenly become perfect, but because consistency has finally reached a level where it can no longer be ignored. Inside, there is a different kind of shift happening. Confidence is no longer something he is trying to build. It starts showing naturally. Not loud confidence, not forced confidence, but something quiet and steady, the kind that comes from repeated effort, finally turning into visible progress. Effort and results start connecting. What once felt like invisible work now begins to show outcomes. The same actions that once felt pointless are now producing real changes, and this creates a powerful internal shift. He no longer has to convince himself to keep going in the same way, because now there is proof that it is working. And this is where something important becomes clear. The world does not react at the beginning. It does not react during struggle. It does not react during silence. It only reacts when consistency becomes undeniable, when the results can no longer be dismissed or ignored. And by the time the world notices, the transformation has already been happening for a long time behind the scenes. There is something most people do not understand about doubt. It is not always a stop sign. Sometimes it is just a reflection of how early someone is in their journey. Doubt from others is common, especially in the beginning. When someone is still building, still learning, still figuring things out, the world rarely sees the full picture. It only sees the unfinished version. Early rejection is also normal. Almost every meaningful journey starts with it in some form. People react based on what they see in the present, not what could exist in the future. So when someone is still growing, still inconsistent, still unproven, rejection becomes part of the process. Not because the potential is missing, but because the results are not visible yet. Silence plays a much bigger role than most people realize. It is not empty space. It is the environment where growth actually happens. In silence, there is no pressure to perform, no need to explain, no need to defend every decision. Just time to focus, improve, and repeat actions without distraction. And in that quiet space, transformation slowly builds itself. One of the most overlooked truths is that being underestimated can actually become an advantage. When no one expects much from you, the pressure to impress disappears. There is less noise, less expectation, less judgment affecting every step. And that creates freedom, freedom to experiment. Freedom to fail quietly, freedom to grow without constant observation. Without attention, progress becomes more honest. Without pressure, consistency becomes easier to maintain. And without the need to prove anything immediately, focus becomes deeper and more stable. Over time, what looks like being ignored from the outside can actually become the exact space where real growth is formed. Because when expectations are low and attention is minimal, the only thing left to rely on is steady effort, repeated again and again until change becomes undeniable from within. There is a point in every journey where everything starts to feel different, not because the past disappears, but because it finally starts to make sense. The same person who was once ignored begins to move through life with a different presence, not loud, not forced, but steady in a way that cannot be easily overlooked anymore. There was a time when he was doubted at every step, when his ideas were dismissed before they were even tested, when his efforts went unseen and his voice carried little weight in the eyes of others. But those moments did not stop anything. They simply became part of the process that shaped him in silence. And slowly, without needing permission or validation, things began to change. From being ignored, he started becoming unstoppable. Not because everything became easy, but because he stopped stopping himself. From being doubted, he grew into someone who no longer needed external approval to continue. From unknown, he stepped into a space where his actions began to speak louder than any introduction ever could. Respect did not arrive instantly. It was built over time, through repetition, through consistency, through showing up when no one was watching. And that is where the real shift happened. Not in a single moment, but in thousands of small decisions that no one saw. The most powerful contrast of all is this. The same person they once ignored, dismissed, and underestimated is no longer the same in their eyes or in reality, because now he is the one they cannot ignore anymore. Not because he demanded attention, but because his results made silence impossible. If this story made sense to you, don't ignore that feeling. Sometimes the things that stay in your mind the longest are the things you are meant to pay attention to. Not because they are new, but because they remind you of something you already know deep down. Stay consistent with your own journey, even if it feels slow right now, even if no one is noticing your effort yet. Every strong transformation starts quietly, long before it becomes visible to the world. What matters most is what you keep doing when there is no pressure, no applause, and no guarantee of results. If you are serious about changing your mindset, building discipline, and becoming stronger than your past self, then stay connected with this channel. We share stories and ideas that help you understand growth on a deeper level, not just motivation, but real transformation through daily action. And if you enjoyed this video, take a second to like it. It helps push this message to more people who might need it right now, people who are going through the same silent struggle and need a reminder that change is still possible. Subscribe to our channel for more videos on discipline, mindset, and transformation. This journey is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming consistent, and it starts with the decision you make today.